happens. I have
And
nothing
we're
planned.
live. Sorry about this, everyone. I don't know. Daniela set it up and their clocks went back. So it was supposed to have been set for 7 o'clock p.m. Central. That's what we had been announcing. And so happy Halloween. The bugs are late. I'm looking at here now and it says it starts at 8. But we're just hopefully everyone will go ahead and get the notification and join us. So we'll wait just a little bit before we get into the good stuff. Daniela's going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. There's the lovely wife, Linda. So we are starting. Oh, well, it looks like some are leaving. But our lovely guest, she's the creator of BUCKEYE BigFoot on YouTube. Nance Warren, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you as well.
We're going to, since the time got a little bit messed up there, we're going to kind of wait and give people a little bit of time to get in before we start talking about, we'll wait, at least wait on Daniela. She said she'd be 5 minutes, about 8 minutes ago. So we'll still wait, give her a little bit of slack. Like I told you, Daniela's only ever missed one show in over 300. So we'll definitely cut her some slack.
Yeah, definitely.
So how you been? Hadn't seen you. I saw you at the conference, and I know you guys were busy. You guys had the busiest booth of anybody.
Well, yes, I was sharing a booth with Cam at Dixie Cryptid, so that was a big, huge draw. I don't even think I even got to say hello to you at the conference. That's how busy that whole area was. You couldn't even get close to our booth. It was insane in a good way.
Yeah, no. I think we did say hello just before everything got started because we were fortunate enough to be let in early with everyone that had a booth. But it's not surprising that you and Cam together had a mile-long line. I didn't see a line anywhere else. David Politis didn't have a line. Of course,
I thought he did.
Not really.
No?
Not like, I mean, if he did, it was 5 or 6 people maybe, but he didn't look like you wanted to be there very much anyway. So
that's kind of amazing because I know he's not a Bigfoot person per se, but he looms very large in this entire community. Yeah. Whether you believe that those disappearances are connected to Bigfoot or not, I mean, he's just really big in this community, I think. And
he started in the Bigfoot subject pretty much with the Hoopa Project.
The Hoopa Project, yes, right. Very good, yes.
So, and to me, it's not a real stretch to make a connection, to what could be. There's no real way to know, but the suspects become limited until you kind of maybe could add this creature. They are out there, and what people have seen and reported, it's not a bear.
I would agree. And I know a lot of people that I met at the convention, they were not familiar with David Politis at all. And I would briefly give a sketch of what his work encompasses and how meticulous and detailed and exacting it is. And I know more than a few people made a beeline straight for his stuff. And they were pretty impressed. And I've had a couple of emails from people. Thank you for sending me over there. I've been just enthralled reading all these books. And so... even though he is not Bigfoot per se, I do think it's definitely, like I said, he looms large in the community.
Absolutely. Well, he goes to the Bigfoot conferences.
What's going on behind my head? This has been happening. Did you see that?
You've got your green screen on.
I haven't got anything. Look, literally, I've just got a lamp behind me. And
but look at your green screen in your cam mic.
Oh, I see.
Where it says green screen.
Got you.
You got one selected? Because see, I can select like brick wall.
That's what it is.
Let me see if I can select something that's going to make it
Sorry
work,
about
actually.
That. Hi, Nance.
Hey, Daniela, how are you?
I'm good. An hour in front, behind now, or in front. It's so confusing. But
I get it.
Yeah, our clocks change before yours do. I think yours changed next Sunday.
Right.
Yes.
We're 5 hours difference now, not 6 hours at the moment.
Well, when I got here, I looked. It said 8 o'clock.
I
And
set it for 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., which is normally 7 a.m., 7
right.
p.m. your
Yeah.
time.
So that was.
I should have set it for midnight my time.
Look, I mess up every single time when if it's spring forward or fall back. I'm either early for work or late for work that day because I don't ever know when it is. It just happens. Let me turn
Shouldn't
this
have to do
off.
complicated math to tell the time.
It's too much. All these different
You
time
just
zones.
can just do like
Yeah.
some places. I think it's Arizona doesn't recognize daylight savings. They just change time zones, which they get to keep their clocks the same, I suppose.
I think parts of Indiana are the same way as well. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, we're getting them slowly trickling in. I know, and hopefully the notification goes out to people. But hey, people can always watch it back. It's not that big a deal. Let's get started. What do you say? Let's do it. There's some questions that I definitely had for you, Nance, and the first one was, how did you get started doing this?
Doing the actual YouTube, or how did I get started in the whole Bigfoot thing?
In the either one, the Bigfoot subject, YouTube, just take your time.
Well, I've said it a million times. It really started when I was probably 6 or 7. And I don't know if you remember that old show, Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to watch it religiously, and I was always blown away by there's this thing called Loch Ness Monster or this or that. But the one, and they always were some far-flung Easter Island, this, that. And then all of a sudden, here's something right here in America. And my little mind was just blown. And I remember going to the library and trying to find things on it. And, there wasn't a lot on it at that time, but, gradually it grew. And then, strangely, when I think I was 13 or 14, I had a cousin by marriage, so to speak, down in Kentucky. When they moved up to Ohio, they moved near the Blue Rock Forest in Zanesville area in Ohio. And they did that for her husband's work. And they actually had a rather aggressive set of several encounters. And that actually became my very first story on Buckeye Bigfoot. But through her, and we're talking before internet ever came out, she had networked and found people through many years that also had all these experiences. And through her, I was able to get some of those stories. And I spoke to a couple of them, and I got 12 stories together. And I said, okay, if I do one story a week, that's 3 months. I'll put a call out. There have to be other people. If I can get enough in, then I'll keep it going. If 3 months go by and I don't get anything else, well, then it's dead in the water. And it was a great run, had a great time, so that's what started it. And I was completely unprepared for how quickly Buckeye Bigfoot grew. I did not, I remember telling my husband, it'll probably be a year before I even get 1,000 subscribers. I really didn't know. I had no idea. So, that's what got me started.
You're up over 50, aren't you?
No, I think I'm close to 45. I think I'm close
Really?
to about 44, 45,000, something like that, subscribers.
Anyway, for YouTube, for any YouTube channel, that's successful. And I mean, just the amount of attention you get, but it's more than just reading the story, because there are a lot of people that try to do this. They get exposure. Yes. I tried it with the Shudder, and I mean, I put out 50 videos and I got like 6,000 subscribers, but it was because I already had a base here to push it. But it's something about cadence. You and Cam have it. You both have it. It's a storytelling cadence where you have people's attention, you grab them, you're bringing them there. And when I'm reading it, I just don't have it. I could sit here and talk and tell a story, okay, but when I'm trying to read it, it's just completely, it's not the same. It's just not there. So it's not voice, though you do have a nice voice. And to me, this is just the way I see it. You have that storytelling cadence. It's got to be a natural thing. I don't know if you've been doing that for a long time or whatever, but you probably read the phone book and it would be good.
No, honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sitting here thinking about it while you were talking about it. If I had to take a stab at it, because, I never had children, so I was never reading bedtime stories or anything like that. I read a lot. I've read a lot. And I do that thing where I read. I'm literally hearing it in my head. as I'm reading, and I'm almost telling my own story while I read the book. I don't just read word and sentence. It's a strange thing I do, but I've noticed that when I get stories from people, that's how I start reading them, as if it becomes the story. I read it just the same way I'm hearing it in my head. I'm thinking about, here's the scary moment. This is lighthearted or whatever, but I don't know. I try not to overthink it. Every time I've tried to overthink it, it starts sounding a little more wooden, a little more forced. So, and it's true. A lot of people do try this. And I think a lot of people, I'm not sure why their channels don't explode. I've listened to quite a few, and I think they're really good, but I don't know. I don't have an explanation. It's not something I practiced.
Well, I've already told everyone that, I asked you to help me out with the documentary. I sent 2 stories to you, and I sent 2 to Cam, and you did them different. I mean, it's fitting. It works for this. I wanted to ask you that. What were you thinking then? Because obviously it's not the same as what you normally do. The way you told these, it's a little more formed, more concise than just matter of fact, instead of the normal way that you usually tell a story.
Now, that one I did put a lot of thought into. I remember asking you what kind of styles you wanted. Were you looking for more of a more concise, I don't want to say news bulletin style, but what were you really looking for? And you were saying just do them how you would normally do them. And I read through them several times, and that is my normal thing that I do for any stories. I will read them, and I will read them out loud to myself several times before I record, because that's where I'll find, that really is a run-on sentence. That isn't, or this is where I'm going to, but no matter how many times I read those through that you sent me and read them out loud, they seemed very focused. These were not stories or encounters. These were not entertainment. There was just something different in the structure to me as I read them. So I don't know. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's a hunch, but I just kind of go with it.
I think it is the way they're written. The book was written by Brad Bertelli. It's called Florida Keys, The Skunk Ape Files. And he's got a context, then he's got a historical event, and then he's got his own notes. Well, I left his own notes out of it. But just the context and the historical event of what happened of these famous people, captains and missionaries, Spanish missionaries that refer to these creatures as the face on the chest people. They refer to them as people, like they were a tribe, but they called them, and obviously the head's way down here on most of these creatures, as they called them face on the chest people. But those were the Spanish missionaries. But Ponce de Leon, having his men talking about La Bestia, the beast, and these certain areas they would go and cutting back woods and trees just to keep, because that's where they like to get, was in those lines. But the way you did it, the way Cam did it, and maybe it is the way it was written, because his was a little bit different than he normally tells too. It's almost like it's facts, it's information. It's really good. I think people are going to enjoy that part. I'm using those as transitional material between day and night, and just they work really good. So I really appreciate you doing that, and hopefully people are going to get to hear it soon, because now that Spook Week is going to be over with, and I'll be able to get back to it. I just haven't been able to touch it since then. So it's been a couple of weeks since I've looked at it, and it's as close as it is. I know you said you had a lot of questions for me, so we'll see.
Well, I was really excited when I first became aware of this project. And when you reached out to me and said, would you mind? I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'd love to be part of this. And I know a lot of people listening. I expect they all should know the 168-hour project. If not, please look at it, because it's really, I don't know, how much do you really have out on your channel for that? I know you had some bits on it, didn't you?
I've got a 6-minute, 41-second piece.
Yeah,
that I let a few people see, and we put on here, but I've already changed the beginning.
okay.
The structure of it is the same, but I redid some of the way that I narrated the intro, because it's going to be the intro for every episode. However many episodes there are, there's probably going to be at least 2. So the first one's it's almost there. It's an hour and 27 minutes so far.
Daniela's are there like, yep.
They are. And I keep saying that, but I haven't been able to touch it. I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. I got here at 6:30. So, and we had 30 minutes to get ready for the show. So,
yeah.
and
Life's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes a break as well from something, you can go back with a clearer head, can't you?
Yes.
Step away from editing, can be a lot.
The hardest part about conveying any of it is getting people to understand, Daniela, is just uploading something into the cache and then pulling it in and then having to worry about, because I have it backed up just in case anything happens. But I've got a 3 terabyte hard drive. Well, I've got 0.7 terabytes of room left on the first one. So I'm going to have to completely wipe everything off once it's done. And if I have to refer back to anything, I'll have to refer back to what I've already edited and bring it in and that's how long is that going to take? My God. Some of the clips are just long and they're out of order, and it's a nightmare finding the good stuff. But fortunately enough, I think I found enough good stuff in it. Plus everything that Mark and Melanie have added that they've gotten out of the same area, along with what we've got, and just trying to make it all make sense to people. Exactly what happened down there and what was captured that no one knew, really. They heard and experienced things, but nobody really saw anything. And that's just indicative of the nature of the creature, really. They're not giving you anything, but that camera does pick up things that we can't see. And that's what you're going to see in the film. There's a lot of that.
I was pretty impressed when you were telling me about that camera and all the things that it could do. And the clips that you sent me, I think people are really going to be riveted when they see this 168 project. I really do.
Good reviews on the first 641. So let's see the rest of it. I think I had 24 full breakdowns of individuals that they captured, not in the first episode, but for the whole thing. So there's going to be plenty of Bigfoot in it, and then plenty of things that people experienced themselves, them telling their stories, what happened to them in the field, interviews in the field. Thank goodness they did that, because I wasn't there for a lot of those. So Christopher Noel, Jimmy Barr have really helped produce in the field. And so, big props to them. Brad Hatcher got people up and going. Like the third day, things were just kind of drab. It was raining, and he just said, all right, let's go. Get everybody up, and started really coordinating people, because I couldn't do it all by myself. So he, big props to him. But you know what? We'll talk about all that stuff when it comes out, because I want to know, and we're going to get some questions from the chat, because I know you've been moving. You lost your hard drive. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was pretty rough on me. That's why they were. I usually upload on Tuesday and Friday, and before the move actually commenced Monday, Monday. I spent the last weekend and I'd already compiled Tuesdays and Fridays for this week, because I knew moving, it was going to be chaos, just trying to set up to record, find everything. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So I had everything on that hard drive, and I'm carrying everything. You think I've got the box flaps, how you kind of just fold them. And hard drive slips right out as I take like the second step down on wood steps, and it goes dun, 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 all the way down. I was like, oh my God. I took it to the Geek Squad people or whoever it is at Best Buy, and nobody can fix it. Nobody can revive it. I had everything for the 12 days of Squatchmas on there. I had my Halloween marathon on there for tonight. I had Tuesday and Friday's videos on there. I had, just like you talking about 3 terabyte. I think mine was a 1 terabyte, and I didn't have it full, but I lost a lot. So I got to start everything over from scratch. So you have my sympathy for yours being almost full. I know you didn't lose it, but you're better at backing it up than me.
It's just the cache that's almost full. And the only reason for that is because the clips are long, and there's so many of them, from 31 devices.
Yeah, that's a lot.
For an entire week. Yeah, and some of it's in 4K. So that's 4 times as heavy as 1080p. So it's, I've gotten to the point on here before where I go to drag something into the timeline, and it just says, nah, I'm going to drop it on the desktop. It'll drop it over in documents. I got to go look for it and then hold it there for a little bit and hope it catches, just so I can go through it. It's and I'm going to get another computer once I get done with this one, but I got to finish this one here. It's too close. It's just too close. But I got a few questions. Daniela, did you have anything before I start?
What sort of books are you interested in? I like to read, but what's your kind of favorite thing to read?
When I was really young, I loved all kinds of fiction. It could be, of course, when I was younger, I read, all the creepy stuff, like all the Stephen King, the Dean Koontz and Anne Rice, and then, I started moving on to a lot of different things. Now I'd say the last 10 years solid. I love nonfiction. I love a lot of nonfiction. I think I've reread all my Agatha Christie, all like 84 of them or whatever, like 120 times. I've got the whole collection. Those are some of my favorites. I really like nonfiction lately. And by that, I mean, I read a lot of books on ancient history, civilizations, of course, lost civilizations, conundrums and mysteries in general. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. I don't read too much fiction anymore. And it's a strange thing. It's like every book I pick up anymore, even if it's just new and came out, I read the synopsis and I'm like, I know I've read something just like this. And I put it back. And I'm sad to say that. I guess there's only, so many plots under the sun. And
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something back then, wasn't there, before sort of like DVDs, videos came out, where reading was much more the thing to do, wasn't it, I guess?
And I'll tell you what, I met my husband in 1985, and how I knew he was definitely the one is that Valentine's Day, he did not bring me cards or chocolate. He picked me up a leather-bound book from, I think it was Brentano's in the mall, but I said, okay, this guy gets me. So, yeah, that was definitely before DVDs and all that. Reading was the thing. It still should be, I think. But
I'll tell everybody, make your kids read, make them read until they learn how to read. Watching TV is good just to get some kind of visual to draw from. But my mother made me read. I mean, every famous author she ever thought of, Faulkner, Virginia Woolf, Chaucer. I was reading Canterbury Tales when I was 14 years old. Understood very little of it. Mm-hmm. But I think reading helps you. Once you start to comprehend, you have to imagine what's going on. So it's kind of exercising your brain, and it starts to bridge synopsis and creates neural pathways. That's what reading actually does for you. So I tell anybody, while your kids, when they learn to read, make them read. I'd make them read as much TV as they watch, make them get that much time on the book. Absolutely. Because I think it's the best thing for any child in development. I think it teaches you to stop and think before you react. Not that I do any of those things, but I quit school when I was in the 9th grade. I did not get the vocabulary I have from going to school. I got it from reading those books. And just some of those words and sentence structures stuck, I think. So
I've never met a reader with bad vocabulary. I've never met a very prolific reader with bad vocabulary, sentence structure. They're usually very good at articulating and expressing themselves, their ideas and thoughts, and you can't get that. A college degree cannot give you that. I don't care. I know people with college degrees, and this is not a slur. I'm just saying you really have to read. You absolutely must. I mean, every big author I've ever listened to in interviews, they also say the same thing. You can't be a writer unless you do read a lot. So that might going back to what you asked earlier about cadence and stuff. And I tell you, when I read, I actually read it in my head like I'm telling myself a story. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's where it comes from.
I think absolutely. See, I try to do it. And it's not. Yeah. It doesn't come out as well. I think maybe I go too fast or something. I don't know. I don't have that same storytelling ability from reading it. But I want to ask you this. You've told many stories at this point. You've had to come across some pretty scary and creepy things when it comes to Sasquatch, especially.
Yeah, there are a couple stories that really stick out. Some it's because they're very, very scary to me. Even just I can remember the one where this happened, I want to say on Highway 50 outside of Hillsborough in Ohio. And a man discovered that what he believed was a Bigfoot was chatting to his daughter through her screen window at night. And this went on for quite some time. And he would find piles of rocks and dead birds and things like that under her window. To me, that was very horrifying because it was definitely targeting a child, whether it was male or a female. I don't know, but that one to me was the most terrifying. And I don't know if anybody out there else has listened to that one. There have been some that are just terrifying, some that are just really emotional and upsetting, like the retired military dog that went up against what she said was a Sasquatch. I think that was in Ross County, Ohio. Jeannie was her name. That was very bad because the dog did not make it, as most dogs don't when they go up against, Bigfoot.
Right.
To me, I think a lot of them are really, really scary in general. I mean, I can't imagine coming up against one, even if it's peaceful. It would be terrifying to me. Just the realization, this is real. This is no Cracker Jack, cartoon. This is the real deal. So
I say it all the time. I say it all the time, and I believe it firmly, and I'll always believe it, that we are not emotionally prepared for it. We're not emotionally prepared to see one of these creatures, especially if it's suddenly you're realizing this and you have got no awareness at all. I think it really has a profound effect. But you're talking about the thing in Ohio. Linda and I drove from South Mississippi to Ohio to do our third episode of our travel show. And Stacy Derrick, that was his name, was talking about his daughter and this thing coming to her window, 10, 11 years old, watching her, but killed one of their chickens, a bird, and left it at the door for her while everyone was gone. And she was at home by herself, 11 years old, in her room, and she said she heard it. She never saw it, but it was still at the window. And I think she had several experiences where they were at the window, or one was at the window watching her.
That's eerily similar. I mean, the only reason he knew this was even happening was he got in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and as he was finished, and he just finished washing his hands, and he's standing there in the dark and he's listening. He's like, what am I hearing? He thought at first that his daughter was just up in the middle of the night playing, or she was playing with dolls, but then he kept hearing a doll or something talk and make noise. And he thought, that doesn't sound like any toy I've ever heard. And he literally went in there and saw it at the window because it was backlit. So that's when he realized this is a problem. And it went on for quite a while. They actually eventually left that area and sold the house to another family member who did not have children and has never had a problem. So
that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got a question come up from Lynn Parsons. What's Nan's favorite story you've been told? What's your favorite one? If there can be a favorite one in Bigfoot.
I've got a couple, but I think my favorite one is because there's something about the way that person really wrote it that it pulls at my heartstrings and nostalgia. It took place the week of July 4th, 1965, and it's called Bigfoot Caught Watching Fireworks. And I think the thing is because it's about him and his cousins. They were young teens. It was right before the start of Vietnam. And so it was their last big summer altogether is when they encountered this Bigfoot. And there were a lot of other family things going on. One of the boys was being very badly abused and things like that. It was very detailed. It was very incredibly written. Some people, you talk about some people have the natural cadence, but some people, boy, they're just natural writers. And that person was one. It was one that when my sister heard it, she literally was almost in tears. And she said, this is my favorite. This is my favorite. This is my favorite. So I would say that one would have to be definitely one of my favorites.
Cool.
I've actually got a story here that we'll probably read in a few minutes that is about looking in the window. So we're going to read that. I'm going to read that here in a little bit.
Cool. Roughly, Victor asked, what's Nancy's location in Ohio?
Yeah, what's your address and phone number?
Yeah, exactly. Credit card number.
I have to be careful because previously everyone knew that I lived in Liberty Township, which is north of Cincinnati. It's like right between Cincinnati and Dayton along the I-75 corridor. And I had made mention that I was moving, and someone offhandedly asked where. And I kind of said roughly the exact little teeny tiny town. And I want you to know I got an email yesterday. They had figured out where I live, my new address, because on Zillow, there was only one house that had been for sale in that town in the last like 30 days.
Well, that's something you have to worry about, right? When you get some popularity, that's something you really have to worry about. People
you
are
do.
crazy.
No, I mean, I'm still in Southwest Ohio. I'm really close to the Indiana border, somewhere between Shandon, Okeana, Millville, and Oxford. It's like a triangle area there. So I'm out in Cowland, and I'm absolutely loving it. I spent a lot of my time growing up on a farm when I was little in Corbin, Kentucky. We raised cattle. So, and I don't have cattle near me, but I do have a corn farm, a corn field right next to me. So, yeah, I'm out in a very rural area, and I'm very happy. Finally.
So what are you going to do when you start seeing the signs?
When I start seeing what?
The signs, the Bigfoot signs.
I will be getting every trail cam and a camera put out there I possibly can, and I'll try to make sure they don't see the infrared. And yeah, I'd like to definitely get a picture of them, because I get that all the time. Well, how come everybody sees them but nobody has a picture or video? How come they're always blurry? I can't answer that. I can just tell you that if I do see one, my first thought will be, where the heck's my camera?
There are clear pictures. There are some pretty clear pictures out there, but
they're
not wrong when they say that, because things are digital now. And if you move just a little bit at any distance, anything is going to be blurry. It's not like someone standing there posing for a picture. Most people are filming with video, and it's moving, shaking. Right. These gimbals are coming out, technology's coming out, lenses are getting bigger. So I think it's a matter of time.
I think so as well. And I know there's really good, compelling evidence out there. I mean, the cream of the crop is always going to be the Patterson. I don't care what anyone says. I really do think that's real. I've watched it forwards, backwards a million times, I think, in my life. Nobody had the ability in 1967 to do that. The best makeup and costumer in Hollywood. I don't remember if it was in Jeff Meldrum's book. One of the books I read talked about him and named him, and he said he would never say that he did or he didn't. No, I did that or I didn't do that. He only said right before he died that he wouldn't admit if he didn't do it because he didn't want to admit that he wasn't that good. And those were his words. So that's pretty compelling. So yeah, there is very compelling evidence out there. And I just hope I live long enough to really see some more clear. I personally would like it.
Well, I think we got some pretty clear ones for the doc. I mean, you're definitely going to be able to see what it is. And people are going to have to question our integrity when they see it, because to me, there's no doubt when you see the movements. You saw the thing, especially in the intro, that thing blinking. I mean, what is it? If it's not a Sasquatch, someone please tell me what it is, because all the signs were there, and that's not the only thing in there. That's just the one that everyone's seen so far, but much clearer stuff is in there in the film. I just put those in the beginning.
What little I saw was very intriguing. That's why I'm very enthused and anxious. I'm anxiously waiting for that, to come out. I think it's going to be, like I said, it's explosive. I think it's going to be explosive for a lot of people. I really do.
Me too. I'm anxiously waiting myself. So I think I'm just lollygagging. I promise I'm not. It's just hard. It's very hard to do. Well, look, it's hard. It's hard to create anything, period. It was hard for me to do all the other documentaries we did. It took a long time just putting those together. But this.
It's not just one camera, is it?
Yes, it's different when it's a ton
multiplied by a lot.
And you want to put the best
I know how much I pull my hair out just doing basic audio with just a couple of pictures. I can't imagine a full documentary type film like that. I don't want to call it choreography, but just getting it together, the production of it. Yeah, that's something I can't imagine.
I don't know if you can hear that's rain. don't know if you can hear it. It's really, really loud here.
All right.
Like,
I'm getting aggravated right now by one of our executive producers. So he knows who he is. Yeah. Stop making excuses. That's what he says. Put it out. Y'all don't want to hear the rest of what he's writing. So.
I'll just grab this question before it goes off.
Yeah.
Hi, Kevin. Kevin Park says, what's the Western Reserve and are there lots of sightings there? Is that something you mentioned before? Western Reserve?
Western Reserve?
You'll have to elaborate, maybe, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Western Reserve.
Lynn Parsons says, Kerry, please invite Nance to participate in the next 168.
Absolutely. I think Cam's going.
I would be up for it, definitely. I really would.
Cam's going to go and help film. He said, I don't want to be in it, but I'll come run a camera for you. I was like, come on. I'm not in it. I'm not in it at all. I know I'm going to hear some guys complaining why they're not in it very much. I'm not in it, period. You get to hear my voice, and that's it. I have one little segment with me in it, but I'll take it out. So it's out. I'm going to read this story because I think it's a good one. This is called Sasquatch Lullaby. And this was, I can't remember if I talked to this woman on the phone or not. It seems like I might have. But it goes like this. About 8 years ago, my husband and I lived in a double wide on 10 acres his parents gave us. It was just right for us, set up on a hill with a 2-acre pond, a barn, and 9-row garden I spent most of my days in. My husband worked offshore and 14 days on and 14 days off schedule. On his days on, my mother would stay a few nights to help out. We have 2 children, both girls, and the baby was a newborn, so having mom there really took a lot off me. That and not really liking all the time alone with just me and the kids. I'd get a creepy feeling at night sometimes, almost like the feeling of being watched. Every evening around 7:30, I'd take the baby to her room, put her in the crib, and sing her to sleep with a few lullabies. Sometimes while I was singing, I could hear what sounded like moaning or cooing coming from outside. I'd stop singing to look, but having the light on in the bedroom made it where I couldn't see that well out the window and never saw anything. That didn't happen often, but it was enough for me to tell my mother. I could tell about where it was coming from. There was a stand of small trees about 30 feet away in the back of the house between the barn and the trailer. It has to be coming from there. We decided one day we wanted to catch whoever or whatever was doing it. I told my mother that when I put the baby down, she should go back in the bathroom and look out. There was a street light my husband had put up by the barn, and it backlit those pines enough that she would be able to see enough if anything was there while I'm singing. It was about a week, but the time finally came. Mom was staying over, and it was time to put down the baby. Mom went to the bedroom with the light off and set up to see if she could spot the source of the noise. I started singing, and sure enough, the whining, moan, and cooing began. I just kept singing, thinking if Mom spots whatever it is, she'll come and tell me. The baby went to sleep, and I came out of the room to see if Mom saw anything. When I got there, she was still sitting in the dark. I turned on the light, and she shot out of there in a panic. Jessica, she pleaded, you've got to get those girls and get out of here. I said, Mom, what's wrong? What did you see? She couldn't answer right away. She just said, please get the girls and I'll tell you in the car. I said no more. If Mom was this upset, I knew something was wrong. I got the baby and she got our 3-year-old, and out the door we went. We got the baby situated and started down the road. My mother was shaking badly. We drove about a mile toward town when she began to tell me something that chills me to the bone to this day. She said, when you started singing, I could hear the cooing sound right away, and it did sound like it was coming from the stand of pines. I squinted and scoured that area from one side to the other, but couldn't see anything. I could hear it clearly, but saw nothing. That is, not until it moved. Between the baby's room window where I was and the back bathroom window where Mom was watching was a 15-foot tall Leyland cypress tree we planted 3 years before. She saw the movement out of the corner of her eye, and there behind the tree, from the baby and me, standing just 4 feet away from her, was a huge, hair-covered, man-like creature with its back to her. She said it was as tall as the eave of the trailer, about 9 feet. She said I was instantly stricken with fear, but she somehow got the courage to move and stepped back toward the toilet, sat down and waited till I came and got her. She said she didn't want to make a sound and clue that thing in to where she was. She described it as being all black and covered with hair, with a few bare spots on its back and shoulders. She said it looked like a man, but much bigger. We hadn't heard much about Bigfoot, but 2 + 2 told us that's what it had to be. We drove to Mom's house and stayed the night. We went back the next day with my cousin Joel, he has guns, to get clothes and baby things so we could stay with Mom till John made it in from his hitch. Joel walked around to the back and to investigate the area and found where the creature had been standing and watching us. This had gone on for over a month. There was a big spot on the ground where the grass had been pressed into the dirt and a massive half handprint on the eave where it looked like this creature rested its hand, wrapped around the corner of the eave, fingers on the roof, palm on top of the fringe of the front edge. When my husband got in, I told him what happened, and he wasn't too surprised. He admitted that he thought he saw a large dark figure walking the tree line one evening, but wasn't sure what it was. It was brief enough that he thought it could have been a shadow. Plus, he didn't want to scare me, so he didn't say anything. Oh, my throat. I had to get that out. We talked about it for a while and decided the creature was coming there every evening to listen to me sing to the baby, and what I heard was it singing with me. Once that thought entered my head and John reassured me that if it wanted me and the babies, it would have gotten us by now, I felt better about going back to the house to stay. Mom still came to stay while John was away at work till the babies got older. I never heard the cooing sound again, but I did get some blinds and made John cut down that cypress tree. Wow. Is that crazy?
Yeah.
She thought it was coming from the back. It's standing right there between where the back window is and where the bedroom window was. It was right by that tree, but Mom still couldn't see it. She's looking all out here and it's standing right there. And it moved and she finally saw it. It's like, oh, that's what it is. So how
I
nuts.
think they're really good at hiding themselves. I really think they're good. Yeah. For sure.
I thought that again, how many times have you heard it? Looking in the window, watching. You know, they could just break right in if they wanted to.
Yeah, I've had a lot of stories rather where people say that it seems like the Bigfoot doesn't understand glass. I mean, we know they can break it like it's nothing, but I've had more than a few where they're like saying they're just touching it. They don't know what it is. It's like some kind of hard water maybe to them or something. I don't know. They don't typically break it because they don't know that they can. Maybe I don't know. So
it could be that. It could be that for sure.
Yeah.
I think to me, these creatures, I don't think they're good or evil in any moral sense. I don't think that's how they really see things. That doesn't make sense to me. I think it's all more about survival and then curiosity on top of that. Other animals do the same thing. Coyotes will do it. They're curious. But
yeah, and I agree. I think that's definitely it. And they're not necessarily, I think, inherently evil. They're not necessarily inherently good or sweet or kind or all these things that we as humans tend to keep trying to label them and make them seem like. I think they're just like humans in the fact that there are some that are just having a bad day and you don't want to be around them. And there are others that they're pretty benign. They're like, go about your business. So I would never take it for granted that one, if I should ever run into one, I'm never going to take it for granted that they're going to be nice or they're going to assume that they're all going to be terrible. I would just give them a wide berth either way. So
I think that's excellent advice. We just don't know enough about them. We don't know enough about them to know how to treat them, really.
Yeah.
Other than to be cautious. That's what I would tell anybody. Of course, when you see it, that's going to be to me the automatic feeling is to be cautious. But yeah, I don't think there's this ubiquitous behavior other than, maybe them hiding other than that, it comes down to trust. I think that's with any animal. You can befriend anything. A bear, you can befriend a bear, a deer, get them when they're young. You know, you earn that trust with them.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think it's no different.
That sounds right to me.
There's a nice, sorry, there's a nice compliment come up in chat for you. And sometimes people don't realize there's other kind of byproduct of the things that you do. It's not just telling stories to people who are interested in those kind of subjects, but the fact that someone can listen to your story and feel like they are getting some sort of healing in some sort of way. It happened to me with Sasquatch Chronicles. After my mum died, I found listening to it was like a comfort blanket, just a place to go. And this is what channels like yours do, is to create a space for people where they feel comfortable and safe and can get through things. Like Darren says, he's lost his best friend in a fire last year, and Nance got me through the pain. So thanks, Nance.
Absolutely.
I'm blown away, Darren. I'm so glad I could. And, you know, this is something that I didn't realize, and I want other people out there to kind of know. As a guest on here, I can't see all the comments, so I have to go back and I'm going to have to read them all, and I will do that. So, Darren, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend. That's devastating. You know, and then that is another byproduct of this whole thing that I never envisioned. Like I said, I never knew what would happen with Buckeye Bigfoot. And I've had people tell me things like that. I had someone recently, they're like, you know, I've been recovering from a really bad car accident. They put pins in my legs. They're reconstructing my hips or pelvic bones. She was like, you know, I listen every night. I don't care if I listen to the same rerun 20 times. It's just something to focus on, and I get through the pain and I get through everything. So thank you. And I was really blown away. So I would say that's probably the best thing that's ever happened about Buckeye Bigfoot for me personally. Is just like at the Gatlinburg Convention, I got to meet so many people. My head spun. I got to meet, you had Jason and Dixie and all them on here. I got to meet them. I got to meet all kinds of people. And then I get these other little vignettes from people. Thank you. You know, I just lost my mother, and it helps at night. I don't feel so alone in my apartment. I got that one about a month or so ago. So it really is humbling, I think is the word I'm looking for.
It's got to be satisfying to know that it's more than just a story sometimes. And to me, one of the biggest things that when you get to be like you and Cam and a few others, essentially a hub for these kind of stories, you've got a lot more people out there, I believe, that have had an experience, that are either on the fence about coming forward with it, but they can't come out with it themselves. They're not, even if they have a place to go, they're just not going to do it. So they send it to you guys to get it out there. But beyond that, you've got others that have had some kind of experience that they may not be sure about, and then they hear it in a story and get some kind of confirmation. That, because confirmation feels good. You want confirmation that you're not crazy. This has happened to someone else. And there's so many different types of encounters and experiences that there's something there for anybody, I think, that's had an experience that can look at it and say, yeah, that happened to me. Now they feel that much better. So that, to me, that's another good part of it, of what you guys do, is in telling those stories and getting them out there, is confirmation.
Well, thank you. And I know one of the things that I really hadn't realized was most people are aware of Bigfoot or Sasquatch on some tangential level, even if they've just seen it in the $6 Million Man when they were a kid. You know, they know something that it possibly exists. What they don't know is what the common, as you call them, signs are. You know, whether it's smell, tree knocks. You know, there's a lot of common things. But story after story after story after story from people who really didn't seem to know much about Bigfoot when they set out and had their adventure or encounter, again, it all lines up. So, I mean, I just don't think people who don't know anything about it could repeatedly make up the same details. I mean, you know, spontaneously. So there's something to it. And I'm glad if they feel comfortable now about coming forward. I definitely think that's helpful.
Well, for us, it's all about awareness here. But you're right. I think to some degree, most everyone, at least in the United States and probably most of the world, has heard of Bigfoot, whether they look at it as a novelty or not. But taking it seriously, and when you present it in a serious way, like us having someone on here telling their story, and to me that becomes information. It's more than just a story. This is what happened to these people, and I think it does promote a different type of awareness. Like when they're in those situations and they hear those things, something is going on, and they're able to go there in their head that they're going to have their own experience, and you won't have to convince them of anything. They're going to be convinced at that point. That's what we hope happens here. And if it happens to 1 or 2 or 3 people, then I think it's successful.
I would agree. It's
a female agrees with me. I'm gonna tell my wife. She's watching. Never happens.
We've had Dixie in. Dixie's been in.
There she is.
Gone now, I think. Gone to bed.
Going to bed. It's Halloween. Jason, you better let that baby stay up till 8.
Yeah,
on the East Coast. 9.
He probably wants his phone back.
School tomorrow. That's what it is. She has
like my parents would always send me to bed and then raid my candy as soon as I went to bed. So yeah, they always wanted me in bed early on Halloween so they could snag my candy.
Well, she is one cool little girl. We met her there at the conference, and Linda and I both immediately, she started calling us Uncle Kerry and Aunt Linda and asked us if she could do that. And I said, yes, of course you can. So she's our adopted niece. Dixie is.
She was really, really, her and her friend Ethan were wonderful.
Ethan. That's right.
Got a question from Joni. Have you ever been to Salt Fork State Park, Nancy? Because there's been a lot of sightings there.
I have been actually, and I've been up to, I think it's Bigfoot Ridge. We've hiked a lot of the trails, saw nothing except other people. Salt Fork is a beautiful park, and there are a lot of really dark feeling forests. There's something different there as opposed to, if you go to Houston Woods, you go to, Benton Furnace, or a lot of these places around Ohio. Salt Fork has some unusual vibe in it, and anyone who's been there will know what I'm talking about. You walk in, and it's almost like the pine trees were planted in perfect rows, although they weren't. And they're missing branches, almost like deer strip them or something, all the way up to a certain level. So you can see for a long distance between the trees, yet it's very dark. And it's unusual. It's got a vibe to it.
Ominous.
Yes. I'm not even sure if ominous is the correct word. It pulsates with a different vibe. It's very different. And just certain parts of it, not all of it. I did enjoy Salt Fork. I've been up there to the Bigfoot convention a couple times, and it's a beautiful park. But I would like to say I saw something, but I can't lie. So I didn't see anything. Didn't see any signs except what I believe was human contrived. We'll just say that. I'm pretty sure it was human contrived, trying to make a joke out of it. So
happens too often, unfortunately. And I think a lot, and I wonder sometimes just how significant location is when it comes to some of these. Because Lynn and I we went to Nebraska and got the weirdest feeling I've ever had in the woods. It was palpable. It was almost like you're about to be shocked at any moment, like electrical. Mm-hmm. It was not a good, it was uncomfortable feeling. I wouldn't necessarily call it ominous. It was a beautiful, bright, sunny day. But there were a few places we went within there that just didn't feel right. So I get it when it comes to that. Like I said, I just wonder, is there some significance to a specific area and a feeling like that when it comes to these creatures, and if they're drawn to it?
I wouldn't be surprised. You and I mentioned recently, everyone has a theory. Their theories. My theory is I think there probably is some correlation, and I think it goes back centuries, maybe millennia. Our Native Americans were very aware. They also avoided certain areas. Maybe it's because of the way they felt about them. But, it's often been noted these areas where they're often cited have names like Devil's Canyon or Ape Canyon or whatever. And a lot of those names came from the Native Americans. So maybe there was a vibe there. Maybe the Sasquatch gave the place the vibe. Maybe they went there because the vibe was there. Chicken or egg, I don't know. But I do think they seem to go hand in hand. And I think a lot of the Native American lore, when you go read it, kind of supports a lot of that.
Hey, look, the place I hunted for 7 years where I finally got to see one, the creek where I always talk about the creek bed, that creek is called Terrible Creek.
There's probably a reason for it, isn't there?
That could be it, because that's a perfect place for them as far as I'm concerned. Perfect habitat for anything.
Wow. What state was that in, Terrible Creek?
It's in South Mississippi. It's off Dan Easterling Road between Collins and Prentice, Mississippi on Highway 84. It's on the north side of 84 off Dan Easterling Road, and you can look, you'll see where Terrible Creek kind of goes down Garway Lane. Garway McGee was the old man that I leased the property from. And it was all behind their house. So you have Garway Lane, and then there's another road, and it's all behind their house, essentially that property, and that creek goes right through there. And who knows how long ago it was named that and why. I know that his son had seen one when he was 15. He was 50, I think, when I met him. So at that point, 35 years ago, and that was 3 years ago when we did it. So that long ago, when he was 15 years old, had seen what he called a tall gorilla. So, and scared him to death.
Mississippi and Georgia, they seem to have an awful lot. Alabama, I think a lot of the South, I think, is often overlooked for these encounters. People focus primarily on the Pacific Northwest with good reason. That's, I think, certainly one of the more concentrated areas. But I think people overlook there are a lot of other places. I get a lot from West Virginia. I get a lot from Missouri. I get a lot from, the southern states. And, I think people overlook that. They're there, and they're definitely there in numbers.
I think so too. And the more East Texas, you hear a lot of aggressive stuff there. East Texas, South Louisiana, South Mississippi. When you do hear one out of Mississippi, it's aggressive. The most aggressive encounter I ever heard was from there. And 3 of these things destroyed this man's house. He thinks he didn't see them, but he heard them, and they were banging on the walls and screaming, and they were after his dogs. I think his dogs had got after one of their young or something. I don't know, but he had lived there for 5 or 6 years, had that place built, and he said he thought they could have got in at any time. But when he brought the dogs in, it was, he lived by himself, had been divorced for like 3 or 4 or 5 years or however long, was an engineer, had gone to the store to get cigarettes and came back, but he had a long driveway, and he had a fence on either side of the driveway. His driveway was a 1/4 mile long, and he had these red tip bushes, and they were 10 feet tall, all lined down it. Well, he said just out ahead of his headlights, he saw something that was on all fours run just out in front of his headlights, dark. Well, he thought it was a bear. So he gets home, gets out, forgets his cell phone in the truck. And when he gets there, the dogs are under the porch crying. So by the time he gets to the door, the dogs are out and they're inside the house. And these are big Scottish wolfhounds or Irish wolfhounds, whatever they are. They're big dogs. So he grabs them up and thinking there's a bear outside, puts them in the garage through the kitchen. Well, turns around, walks outside to look. And he said, I thought I saw a shadow, a weird looking shadow on the side of the right side of the house. And I heard something. So he turns, looks over here, looks back, and the shadow's gone. He said it just kind of washed over him. He had 12-gauge shotgun loaded with buckshot and slugs inside. Goes in, grabs a shotgun. The dogs are just scratching and howling at the door, the garage door, to get in. He said when I walked back in and I shut the door, that's when the first one screamed. And he said it sounded like it was on the porch, just 15 feet from it. And he said it was so loud, it was shocking to hear. So he He had frozen in place essentially until that was done, ran, let the dogs in. And he said, and that's when it started. He could hear it running across the roof. They were just beating on the house. Pictures off the wall. Gets in the hall, crouched down with his shotgun, and the dog's behind him, and sits there. And he said he didn't know when he finally fell asleep, but he woke up the next morning just stiff, being stove up from being afraid and tensed up all night. It was like 10 o'clock, and he saw the dogs at the door trying to get out, so he knew everything was gone. But walked out and saw there was shingles all over his truck, azalea bushes thrown up on the roof. I mean, it goes around, brick ledge in the back is on the ground, big old huge places pushed in on this cedar siding. The whole house, he claimed vandalism on his insurance because that's what it was. But to me, not to have any sign or anything go on for all that time, and then all of a sudden here they are attacking the house. But I think they were after the dogs. That's the only thing that made any sense to me. I told that story a few times, but it was just when I talked to the guy on the phone for a couple hours, and he moved right after that, and was careful not to sell it to a family with kids. Sold it to two older folks.
That's what the gentleman outside on Highway 50 did when they sold their house, because he discovered it talking to his little girl. They had a family member, and they told him the whole story, and they're like, well, I'm not saying I don't believe you, but I'm not worried about it. And he was single and didn't have any kids, never had any, and he never had any problems. So I do want to ask you one thing, though. You actually touched on something I've often thought about, and I keep hearing. You even said it could have probably hurt them if it wanted to.
Yeah.
So, okay. I hear that an awful lot. They clearly have the opportunity. They certainly have the means and the ability, but we don't really hear, people's heads being ripped off or anything. So what do you think is prompting this whole thing that they clearly could, but they don't? Why do they hold back? Why do they just take it out on physical objects like a house, which again, for what they say they can do, they should be able to get into a house, but yet they don't.
I think maybe they're smart enough to know what it will bring upon them. I think they're opportunists. I think if they have an opportunity to hurt you without anyone knowing it's them or knowing they're there, or I think if they have an opportunity to take your kids without anybody knowing what took the kid, I think that's what they're going to do. Some, maybe not all, but I think this has happened. I think people have been hurt by them. Donnie Miller had a face-to-face. This thing was pounding on the ground. Heard the exact same thing from a man that was hunting, and this thing jumped. He said it was a 6-foot chimpanzee. Jumps out of the bushes down in Florida, knocks him on the ground, and he had on overalls with a pocket in the front. Had a .22 pistol in it. Pulls out the pistol, aims it, and he said, when I aimed it at it, its eyes got big, like I'm in trouble. And he fired and shot it, and I guess it grazed off, but he heard it crying and whimpering like it was his feelings were hurt once he was running to his truck when it was over with. So, but it was on top of him beating the ground. It wasn't beating him. So I don't know what it is, why they refrain or hold back. But it seems to me like maybe they know that if they do hurt or kill somebody, that there's just going to be people out there to take them out. I don't know. Maybe there's powers that be that communicate with these creatures and have told them, hey, if you hurt somebody, we're going to come take you out. Maybe that's it. Who knows? there's too many possibilities there, but for whatever reason, they do seem to refrain. But there is a level of tolerance for these creatures for us that you can breach, and they'll at least try to get you out of somewhere, scare you out, or maybe they will hurt you. If you shoot them, you're in trouble.
That's indicating a very high level of not just intelligence, but reasoning. They know that if they do this, this is what will happen. That's reasoning. There's something out that's
Sure.
projecting, and that's intelligence, which in itself can be, exhilarating to contemplate. But the flip side is it's terrifying to contemplate, because as you said, maybe they only choose to do it when they know they're going to be 100% safe. That would be an incredible track record, though, if they've never once hurt someone and have never been caught at it, so to speak.
Well, the only reason I say any of this is because I think it's the same reason we don't find their bodies and their bones out. I think they're, and I say this, I've said this a million times, they're predisposed to hiding. That seems self-evident, that this is just something that's born in them. They're not taught it. They just hide. Even in the dark, they're hiding. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be discovered. They're not going to leave a dead body around one of their relatives for us to find, because they'd be busted at that point. I think if they can work that much out, then there's other things that they can come to determine, such as, if I hurt this person, I think because maybe it's happened. Maybe it's, I mean, they obviously have a language. I've heard them talk twice. So maybe it's part of story time. Hey, this is what'll happen. You want to keep the humans out of here. Don't hurt one. You know, maybe it's just that simple. I don't know.
It could be as well. You know, you often hear about people saying they were going to shoot them, but they look too human.
Yeah.
Who's to say they don't look at us and go, wow, that's something that looks like me? If they've seen a reflection, or if they can work out, you know.
Yeah, that's an awfully good assessment.
Yeah, it is. I hadn't thought of that. So
They must see the reflection in water if they're self-aware. I mean, you'd think they'd take an interest in a reflection. Who knows?
I think they're self-aware. Absolutely. Free will. They can decide. You can bait in a deer. I don't think you can bait one of these creatures in. I think they could, even if they were starving to death, they could decide whether or not they wanted to go and get that food or not. Most animals, you're not going to be able to do that. They're going to go after the food. But hey,
good point. Good point.
It's been an awesome hour, Nance. I'm so glad you joined us. It has. It has. We actually went, because we started late, we went over just a little bit. So it's actually been an hour. So, and that's usually what we keep these to. I've got to get up early in the morning anyway. Gonna get back on the documentary in the morning, everybody. Not in the morning, but when I get in from work tomorrow, I'm gonna get back on it. So hopefully it'll be out soon. But thank you so much, Nance, for showing up, and love what you do. Everyone, if you haven't subscribed to Buckeye Bigfoot or heard of it, and you've been under a rock somewhere, go check it out. Excellent stories, and you've got hundreds and hundreds of them on there, and they're just, you do such a fantastic job of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm sorry I lost my hard drive, so we could have done a little more maybe. Next time.
Next time. That's right. Next time. Hey, is what it is. Daniela, excellent job with Spook Week again, as it has been the last 2 years. And thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for showing up. We hope to see you guys Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. Central that's going to be a Wednesday Encounters. So I gotta talk to the guy to make sure he can make it, but I've got 2 people in just in case. So that will be a Wednesday Encounters. 7:00 p.m. Central. So I hope to see you all then. Thanks again, Nance. Awesome job, Daniela. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Happy Halloween.